more. Expect and Trick are two of the guys we are looking at. If you are playing Unicorns of Love, you always need to respect Xerxe and Vizicsacsi. If you fall behind to them early, you might just lose the game.
And we have to see what G2 want to pull out here in draft today, because there have been some questions in terms of what they're working on, how they will adapt to the new patch, because it didn't look so good in the weeks past, whereas Unicorns of Love seem to have a solid grasp on the meta, if some small weaknesses elsewhere.
There's actually been a very heavy focus onto Chachi up in the top lane. What we've seen in the last few weeks for the Unicorns is Chachi has had a very large priority on getting himself things like the Shen, like the Galio. Now his champion pool is going to be tested a little bit more. We do know that in the past, he has been able to bring out these carries, but when he played Gangplank into Odo, he got dismantled.
Maybe Renekton comes in this time. Rumble, we have seen quite a lot already the last 2 days. First pick wise, if you are G2 with Thresh, going with Elise and Zac, those are very common first picks. Suddenly things like Caitlyn and Rumble look very, very good as early priority picks. And I actually like this because we know that Unicorns can play as Xayah, but Caitlyn is good against her, specifically in the laning phase. And that means G2 eSports are ready for that pick.
And interesting too, now that we see the first round of picks locked in, the Caitlyn, the Rumble on the opposite side, very different from the drafts we had in our series earlier today. Such early priority on the Caitlyn. The Rumble as well. Now Rakan locked in to follow, so very different here in the early phase.
Now I'm thinking that if you're G2, you'd likely go towards either a Braum or a Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench, one of the biggest hard counters to Rakan, often because he acts as a really good disengage tool and he mitigates a lot of what Rakan is so good at. On top of that, Braum, we did see it earlier on in the day, bringing out from Splice, very effective at just being that disengage tool to keep Rakan away.
Kennen top lane with Rumble already being shown. We have to remember Unicorns of Love can always flex the Rumble into the jungle if they don't like the top lane matchup. Obviously, we are expecting this to be, taking the Kennen on top side. It'd be weird to put a Caitlyn top, at least.
Yeah, a little weird. I mean, you could do a high and put the Kennen mid as well, but that would be a little bit
we don't like that either.
Out there.
So I actually agree a lot with like getting the Tahm Kench pick specifically for G2 eSports. I would be a little bit surprised if they actually go for Karma, despite, of course, again, the flex nature of her as a champion. I think after the nerfs, she has lost a lot of value.
Agreed.
And you know you're going to play against Xayah Rakan. At least it's very likely when Rakan has already been locked in and you're not taking that Xayah because you already showed your AD carry.
And one of the big risks that you run, right, is that coming into this split, what we saw is the rise of Thresh and the ability of hard engage supports acting as a great answer to these long range supports that are just trying to poke you and harass you. And what's a better hard engaged bottom lane than a Xayah and Rakan? So I feel like G2, perhaps a bit of disrespect going towards the bottom lane of Unicorns of Love.
Or maybe something new in the back pocket. Maybe they're the team that's finally figured out how to deal with the Xayah Rakan lane. We've already seen Splice deal with it earlier today. Some potential here in the picks as we enter the second ban phase.
I mean, that's one of the things about Karma and the movement speed she does offer. Makes it a bit harder for Rakan with the all-in. And also at the same time, I think G2 are just saying we just want a strong 2v2 lane. Like we want to actually use the Caitlyn power to win this 2v2 and make sure Xayah Rakan are just falling a bit behind and potentially even losing that tower. But this obviously means Unicorns of Love can make TP plays on the bottom side, and they have Rumble top or jungle right now to join these fights, which could be very impactful for them.
And a lot of respect paid over to Xerxe with this Warwick ban being taken off the board. Kha'Zix taken away as well. Interesting enough from Trick, despite the more vulnerable members already present on G2, but now very quickly going to enter the second pick phase, and we'll see where Unicorns of Love wants to put priority.
And this situation has been tough for G2 in the past, where they lose some of the main jungle picks and Graves become like the answer for Trick, and then he doesn't really have any impact in the early game. Lucian is available this time around though, so there's still available junglers for him.
And a Wild Yeti may appear. Who knows?
Yeah.
Karma Kennen's locked in. It has worked in the past for G2 sometimes.
So I wonder also with Xerxe here, if he's not going to play the Rumble, what other junglers he wants to go for, because Kindred is a pick we know he's been playing in solo queue. We have not seen it used competitively from him. And that is actually a special one.
Okay, all right, now. Could technically still go jungle, I guess, but I think what's much more likely, ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing the first Hecarim of the EU LCS. I think of the year, let alone the summer split. But
it fits very nicely into Xerxe's style as well, which is very much that farm to six. Very team fight focused, really good at forcing engages, synergizes nicely as well with the Rakan because you can use him as an engage tool, the immediate Rakan follow-up as well. I feel like it very much continues to fit into the Unicorns of Love playstyle.
Yeah, and even if they could get something, you know, like Orianna to further work with both Rakan and Hecarim, you have a quite insane team fight start. And you are against a lot of AD carries on the side of G2 eSports. Great engage into something like a Shockwave, and you have killed one or two guys just when the fight starts. Obviously, Lucian mid lane is the answer for G2 here as a blind pick. Cassiopeia has been one of the go-to choices against Lucian, but I think Orianna can work extremely well as well.
Ryze is going to be the final lock-in, but Vedius, you brought up how proficient Unicorns of Love and G2 are both at teamfighting. Well, Unicorns of Love seem to be a lot more focused on the teamfighting than G2 here in this draft.
Very, very big teamfight composition coming out from the Unicorns of Love. I don't know how I feel about the Ryze pick. In terms, if they wanted to go more for teamfight, an answer to the Lucian has been, as Deficio was saying, the Cassie, but also Victor and Ori would have synergized slightly better with the Unicorns composition. But I feel like with the Ryze, they're taking into consideration how big of a threat Expect could be if he is able to get ahead in the early game. So they have the side lane answer with the Ryze pick. Perhaps I'd like to see him maybe even run a teleport in there so that he can still match that side lane pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea behind it makes sense, but I would have loved like just a pure team fighting mage because you are running enough engage to say, oh, if you're on a split push with Lucian and Kennen, well, your mid lane your mid lane group is going to die now because we can just hard engage straight away on them and force that into a Baron play. But obviously, Ryze is a champion that if he doesn't fall behind, can have a lot of value in basically all stages of the game. Pick potential, team fighting is okay as well, but it's not the late game monster we see in other mid laners.
And definitely a comfort pick for Exileh as well. Well, folks, if you want to get involved, head on over to Twitter at LOL Esports, hashtag G2 win or hashtag UOL win. Whether you're part of the G2 Army or the Love Hurts crew, we'll find out when we get into game. We can see how that vote works out. But this is it. This is the rematch of the spring finals. Game 1 gearing up, very different than what we saw last time. A struggling D2, a successful Unicorns of Love, despite the loss against Splyce.
And my eyes are going to be on Trick in the jungle. Can he get these laners rolling? Can he get G2 off to an early lead? Or will Unicorns get that big team fight that they have become so famous for?
You're looking at the jungle, I'm looking at the mid laners. Exileh with the Ryze here. I think it is a very risky pick from him that doesn't necessarily it's not really needed here. You could have gone just pure team fight and you would have been fine. Cassiopeia was available. The Victor you highlighted, Vedi as well. But instead, he's going back to this Ryze that we have seen a few times from him so far in this split, and it's not been very successful. He's died a lot in the early game, not due to champion, just due to very poor decisions as a player.
Definitely a tough spot to be. Can't afford to make mistakes here in this series either, because while G2, maybe not as strong in the team fight, are definitely incredibly strong here in the laning phase. We already talked about the Caitlyn, Karma, the Lucian, the Kennen. So much strength here, but you can see cards not in Unicorns of Love favor when we look at historical matchups. 17-4, the all-time record between these teams, and of course, most recently, taking the crown away.
So, turns out Samurais were the cause of the extinction of the Unicorns. A little unfortunate for them, but fantastic record overall from G2. The fact that they have been so consistently dominant over their adversaries in the Unicorns of Love has been very impressive to see over such a long time.
But as we have seen the last few weeks, if there's ever a time to beat G2 Esports, it is right now, because they are struggling. They've lost now quite a few games in the EU LCS, despite going almost undefeated for 3 splits in a row. Poor, I say. Good from Rocket that they actually managed to stop that streak last split. But now if you're Unicorns of Love, you know, you want to bounce back. You lost last week. You just saw Splyce take a game as well, win this series. So they're currently sitting above Unicorns in the standings. And Unicorns want that first place back.
Interesting to see, too, as the jungler start their clear up. Have to keep our eyes on the Hecarim, wonder where he's going to go, what the priority is going to be in the early game. Vedius, you brought up the farming. Fans have brought up the team vote. But I think I'm curious to see what this Hecarim will provide.
Yeah, so Hecarim is a champion. It's been a while since we have seen him. There was a period in time where he was super meta, but he kind of fell off because the biggest issue that Hecarim has is that he really needs items. He scales very well.
He's greedy.
But he needs a lot of gold, and often it's difficult to get it when you're just sitting in the jungle all day. So his most successful time was the Smite Ignite, the TP Ignite era, where he was able to get a lot of gold. Trinity Force is often the early go-to, however, that might shift slightly with certain itemization changes, depending on Xerxe's preference.
And gentlemen, I call this the first Hecarim of the year. It's actually the 3rd. Now, Xerxe has played it once before. The other one was Wisdom. When we look back to how Wisdom played it, he took all the gold. He hogged all the kills.
Yes.
But he did so much work in those fights, and we'll see if that's the road that Xerxe wants to go down.
That's always the thing about a jungle like Hecarim and some of these picks where they can work. Like, you're not just going to pick them and then suddenly you're just completely useless in this game. Like, these champions do extremely well if they get off to a good start. And especially the teamfight impact with an ulti against multiple AD carries, it's very easy for Xerxe to get onto G2's backline. And that's where Hylissang's follow-up will be key as well to keep people in check. And suddenly Vizicsacsi might lay down the best ulti we've ever seen.
But he has to get there. And the problem is, right now, at this point in the game, he is very weak. A Hecarim does not offer a huge amount of early game value compared to a Lee Sin. And you can already see Trick looking to try to exert an element of pressure in the top half of the map. And when you are playing this Lee Sin, when you have so many pressure lanes in Kennen, with the constant pushing in bottom, with a Lucian mid who's a little reliant on getting that early snowball, it is very imperative that Trick is very active in the early game.
This is such a small and dumb point, but I get so happy when I watch top laners at 3 minutes actually place a ward. Because so often in the EU LCS I see guys with no wards at level 3, they get ganked by a jungler and they didn't see him coming, they just die, and we're like, man, why on earth did you do that? Xerxe this time around, smart man, he's learned from many times of dying to that level 3 gank, being like, maybe I should put a ward down, and he actually finds his early game jungler Lee Sin, meaning Xerxe can go back to base, he doesn't have to fear for his top laner's life, despite this little trade. And Vizicsacsi now can just safely farm.
Moving forward. A lot of aggressive trading going on in these laning phase. Ryze versus the Lucian, quite explosive already.
So, note as well that PerkZ actually deciding to run heal in the middle lane on the Lucian as well. The thing is about Ryze is usually you don't run something like an exhaust against an AP mage, so instead you choose to run the heal to mitigate some of the burst that you get up against that Ryze. And you can see that on the Lucian, because of his basic attack pattern, it's very easy for you to just try and trade in favorably because of you can just dash around all the skill shots the Ryze are trying to hit.
So I want to talk about mid lane. I don't want to talk about mid lane because they didn't do anything. Instead, I want to look at Expect, because he's running Thunderlords on Kennen, which is something you can do if you play AP Kennen. But I looked at his runes. He only sits with he sits currently with 6 AP, so that doesn't seem to be at least what he's speccing for in the runes. But magic penetration could also be the way. Also attack speed.
If we look back Season 3 era when Kennen was a top laner, you'd start Doran's Blade, you'd take 80 runes, and you just build magic penetration.
So this might actually be AP Kennen coming in from him, or.
And I feel like it would make more sense when you're running an AD carry mid laner too, and you have Zven on a Caitlyn, having a bit of AP damage coming out from the top lane. Where else is your engage going to come from, right? Karma onto Kennen?
Oh, keep your eyes on the bottom lane, though. Moving forward for a little bit more. Hylissang going to back right out. And interesting how badly this bottom lane is going for Unicorns of Love right now. You can see a massive CS advantage for Zven. So
this is what we talked about with the first pick, Caitlyn. It's a really good answer to that potential Xayah that gets picked on the other side, because Caitlyn will win this lane due to her fantastic range and early game power. And then the Karma just came in as literally a lane bully next to her. So G2 eSports said, we are confident we can win this 2v2 despite playing against Xayah Rakan. Have to remember, Xayah also received some nerfs here on 7-12. And we now see this tower going down at 6 minutes.
And this is actually insane how quickly this is falling. Pretty sizable gold lead this early on, funneled into the hands of Zven and Mithy. This is not something we really ever see, but this is the laning dominance of Caitlyn and Karma, and it's been so long since we've seen these two paired together.
Yeah, very commonly known for being that pushing power bottom lane. In the past, or in the last 2 weeks, what you would have expected is some kind of early action coming out from this Xayah Rakan. We so often see that level 1 all-in play, but it seems that with the pressure in which Zven and Mithy were able to exert, they didn't have that opportunity. They take the early tower, and now we see a bit of trading in mid.
Exileh has to be careful, looking at the footwork out, will make it out in the end, but PerkZ definitely coming out on top in those trades, and in the meantime, Trick able to take the Ocean Dragon, while Xerxe just has to continue farming up on this Hecarim. Ooh. Hungry for blood, of course, can't see into the bush, however, means he's going to have to back up.
The first time we see PerkZ on Lucian not actually get ganked early game and give up an early kill, so he's been able to actually farm just fine. And all of G2 eSports able to do okay in the laning phase. Only Expect really struggling a little bit, but not too bad.
So something you commonly see from Hylissang is that when Samux and Hylissang go do their first back, he will always roam. He will, every single time he does his first back, and he looks to try and set up a gank somewhere. Now they realize they've lost the 2v2, so they preemptively swap to the top, and already they're looking for something.
Oh, trying to go in. That's the ultimate coming out from Kenny. Vizicsacsi looking to feel pretty comfortable here, but the bot lane just not there in time. First blood drops for G2.
So if you look at the minimap, you actually see Zven in the bottom lane. This is why Vizicsacsi did not expect Karma to be top lane. He's like, okay, they're clearly not lane swapping right now. And as you highlighted, Vedi, you know, supports like to roam towards the mid lane after the recall. So the fact that Mithy shows up top and now mid lane fighting.
Forward. PerkZ taking his time though, just looking to get the beneficial trade here. Hecarim is spotted out and G2 going to back off.
But again, the fact that Mithy then goes top lane, hides in that brush here, clearly surprising Vizicsacsi. And that's first blood over to G2 eSports. Great start from them.
And I just love the roam from Mithy as well. The fact that he did go up to the top side. Now Zven makes the rotation after pushing at bottom, so they can now match the 2 versus 2. Feels like that G2, they're just reading Unicorns of Love so well, because the standard play is we take bot tower, we rotate up top. So preemptively, UOL try to answer, and instead by keeping Zven bot, as you were discussing, like, it just has that surprise factor, and you're able to get the early kill. And now that they have 3 members top, they can start applying pressure onto this. And look, Lee Sin is in the top half of the map as well.
And this is just such a good start for G2, although Exileh is starting to feel more comfortable in the laning phase. But G2 already with a pretty sizable lead here. Cullen does come out onto Exileh. It's just going to be the trade back and forth. But you can see G2 really struggling in the last few weeks. But today, starting to make a difference in that.
It's definitely not been a good G2 esports we've seen lately, which is why, again, a lot of people moved them down on like their power rankings, saying these guys are currently not that S-tier team in Europe, and that is obviously very true, judging from all the recent performances. Exileh in the mid lane, still has flash, he's feeling safe, but he is taking a lot of damage every time we see trading happening. It's really just Xayah right now getting the CS lead for Unicorns of Love.
In the same time, Exileh losing it in the mid lane despite trading quite aggressively, looking pretty even in a lot of these trades, still falling behind in terms of raw CS and gold.
And you have to remember, whenever they're fighting, Exileh can't really get his HP back as easily, and there's very early Cutlass on PerkZ here, so whenever they go even in the trades, it actually benefits the champion with lifesteal, which of course in this case is the Lucian.
And now, like, we've talked a lot about G2 and how they have been playing the early game very well, but you still have to remember the classic Unicorn style, which is 15, 20 minutes. For some reason, a button just turns on within them, and they just are able to force fights around the map. And Xerxe has been quietly farming away. You can see he's already picked himself up the phage, working very likely towards that Trinity Force. And once that's completed, I'm expecting Unicorns of Love to be a little bit more active once they've hit those level 11 marks and got a few more points in their ultis.
And there are again a bunch of squishy members on the side of G2 esports, so even if you're down in gold on the side of Unicorns of Love, one good team fight with some well-placed ultis from a Xerxe, from a Vizicsacsi, and suddenly that fight is won. If you are the Unicorns of Love, they're getting a lot of damage on this top lane tower right now, only Zven here to defend it.
Looking good for now. Zven doing what he can to hold on, but of course not a whole lot of wave clear outside of the Piltover Peacemaker, and expect no longer attended to by Vizicsacsi. It means he gets the bot lane pressure going for the side of G2.
And bear in mind, the reason why G2 had to take so much damage down on that tower was because there was no vision on Xayah, no knowledge on where Xerxe was, and there was the fear as a gank happens.
Oh, Exileh in trouble. He's going to get slowed down by the Bilgewater Cutlass, looking for a little bit more. Can't find the third stack there. Exileh now running for his life. Expect may have overstayed. Now trying to get out. Is stunned up. That's going to be the first kill dropping, but Expect is set to fall to Xerxe. Now backing off, but Trick is hungry for a little bit of blood. Sonic Wave doesn't connect, and G2, it's the 1-for-1.
So Expect, he was able to get the push-up, but immediately roam through the mid because there was no vision from the Unicorns of Love in their bottom half of the jungle. That made it very easy for him to walk into the lane and help PerkZ get that kill down onto Exileh, but then Xerxe was there to be able to provide support.
Yeah, not a terrible thing here for Unicorns of Love because they're getting the kill onto that jungler who needs the gold. Exileh, after actually flashing out, could have stepped out of the fight, but he decided to go back in, which is why he ends up dying because the stun came in from Expect, who is in fact building some AP here on this kind of proto-build rush. We've seen some of it in LCK. Marin was experimenting with the AP Kennen top lane. Not very successful in a lot of the games, but Expect is clearly trying the same thing here.
This is an LCK, Marin. This is EU LCS. Different things work here. Normally AD Kennen in the bottom lane, but we'll try the AP Kennen on the top side of the map, and G2 gonna have to back off the Rift Herald. That attempt did not work out.
I'm actually a really big fan of AP Kennen. I actually really
Get out of here!
For Western teams, I have not seen a huge amount of success with AD Kennen. I know, like, the LCK, they make it work exceptionally well, but I feel like that just running in and pressing your ulti and doing a lot of damage just fits a lot better with a lot of the styles that we have here in Europe. And I think that, especially against the team fight heavy comp of the Unicorns of Love, it can be a good answer if it can get to that point.
Oh, let's see. Okay, gonna get started. That's the Xayah Rakan. Really no hope to escape here for Zven. Still gonna make it out. No, flash forward on the auto attack. The Deadly Plumage playing cleanup. Hylissang now backing out. Hecarim's on the way as well. Mithy cannot afford to stick around.
And this is what always happens when you have Rakan. Like, the speed at which you can engage just means it's so hard for the enemy carry to try and flash out in time. Impossible to net away for Caitlyn. She needs to flash it straight away. And even then, that is difficult to do on low ping because it's so quick. Great engage from Hylissang. Didn't even use his flash. Unicorns of Love now got that top lane tower. They got a kill on Xerxe before something midnight now.
Now kicking him back. They're trying to keep the fight going. Has the quickness been used? Looks like Exileh may try to make his way out of this one. PerkZ is out of mana. Exileh backing off unscathed.
Good ultimate there from Exileh to help him and Hylissang get out of the fray.
Not going to get in the end now. Expect is in trouble. The fight just keeps going. Vedius got to keep our eyes on it. Out comes the Featherstorm. Does pull it back, but Samux not going to connect. G2 maybe looking to push forward. PerkZ low on mana. Exileh looking for the chain CC over the wall. Battle Dance comes in, but no grand entrance. Both sides walking out, all 5 strong.
And you can see the blood starting to boil for the Unicorns of Love already. 13.5 minutes into the game, grouping up as a 5-man unit, looking for these opportunities to fight. They get the kill down onto Zven. They're able to get a bit more gold back into their pocket. They got themselves the Rift Herald as well. Things are certainly looking up for the Unicorns of Love as a play happens in the top lane.
I love how far back Hylissang is standing right there to surprise Zven. We even see also a TP from Expect to maybe try and join the fight, but realize, okay, I can't actually do anything because the enemy jungler and so on could also be there. Enemy top lane TP could happen, so Expect had to cancel his. So this is on cooldown for now, but all in all, just the fact that Unicorns of Love end up playing topside, and G2 invested so much towards ganking mid lane. They even had the AD carry support roaming towards mid lane. They didn't actually get anything from it.
PerkZ, quickness, leap over, charmed up, chain CC comes in. PerkZ now goes down. That's another one for Xerxe. Nice setup from the Unicorns.
And we talked about the Karma pick earlier on. Imagine if there was a Tahm Kench there to just gobble PerkZ up and take him to safety. Sure, you don't have that same kind of lane power, but right now Unicorns of Love are using this Rakan to the fullest.
Absolutely are, and this is the engage we've come to know and love from Hylissang. He is such an aggressive player, and whatever faults he may have, he is so consistent on finding these opportunities.
But that's always the hard thing now, to start looking at, you know, what if it was a Tahm Kench, what if it was a Karma, a Xayah, whatever it is. G2's plan early on worked. They got bot lane tower at 6 minutes. Xerxe seems to be just running away. Trick. Oh, actually, I expect to see it too.
Oh, it's going to be used. Trying to chain some CC. 2 stacks, not going to get it.
So basically, G2 eSports, the problem for them was when they swapped to the top lane, it became too much of, let's not play just pure 2v2 lane, let's try and actually go towards mid lane and make something happen. But they also had to respect that Xerxe was level 6 now. Obviously the Xayah Rakan combo, we've seen the engages from Hylissang, how easy it is. It just made it much harder for G2 to AFK push on this Karma Caitlyn. And that's why Unicorns of Love have now been able to get back in this game here. Towers, kills. It's looking really good for the Unicorns.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with also their vision, right? Bear in mind that when that Samux Hylissang play happened in the top lane, when they were able to get that kill onto Zven, the top half of the map for G2 was completely lit up. There was no knowledge from G2 as to where Xerxe was, which is a big part of why Expect couldn't confidently join the fray. And so Unicorns, there has been criticism for them in the past as to how well they are warding and how well they properly set up for their plays and how effectively they are using their vision. And I feel like at times, especially so far in this game, they have been a lot more effective with it.
As we look forward, it may be something that Unicorns of Love are looking to improve on. It's already looked better this game for them, but G2 still ironing out the creases here to a certain degree. But you can see Unicorns of Love, not quite the roarers you would expect from a top team. We're going to have to hold that thought because Vizicsacsi is in trouble. Blade of the Rune King popped. PerkZ looking for the relentless pursuit, but will not get the cooldown back up in time.
Cool guys, don't look at explosions right here. Chachi just walking out after laying down that ulti. No one from G2 can follow, but yeah, as you see on your screen, this is why Unicorns of Love can struggle in terms of that vision, because very few of their players are buying a lot of control wards. It's a lot about instant engaging fights, kind of disrespect where the enemy can be on the map, and this is why some of the games can backfire, some of the moves can get punished. In a game like this now, with the amount of engage they have on their side, they might not need too much vision just to say, let's go boys, we will 5-on-5 them anyway.
But even then, Martin, you can already see the vision starting to look better. They already had 4 control wards in the inventory. Exileh placed his, but the team clearly much more proactive this time around. And now they're looking to keep the chain CC going. Where's the Featherstorm going to be? Not going to come out quite yet, but in comes the pony. Down goes the Ninja. Unicorns of Love have turned this around so quickly.
And bear in mind, Unicorns of Love, they had set up this play in advance. You can see the 2 control wards in the entrances to G2's jungle. There was no vision from G2. Xerxe hit the Trinity Force power spike that we casters love to talk about. And with the push from Samux and Hylissang and Xerxe on that Ghost Pony, he was more than happy to come in. Just look, you can see the vision. Look at the darkness from G2. They have no idea that the Ghost Pony's coming.
It feels so bad when you're just going to get get hit by all this chain CC, and suddenly a Hecarim when you think maybe I've made it out. Xerxe just playing spoiler.
Also quite some disrespect from Expect right there. He's sitting, seeing the Rakan jump towards him. He's barely any vision, 2 wards in his own jungle, no backup nearby. And he decides to take the CC anyway. He could have easily flashed it. That was not like a flash engage from Hylissang. That could have been flashed away by Expect. Maybe felt like it was just a 1v2 and he was supposed to survive. But in the end, Xerxe shows up with the insane mobility of Hecarim. He's 3-0 right now. He is so strong.
And bear in mind, things become a little difficult for G2 right now because their composition, at first we thought maybe they could try and play for a 1-3-1, right? You send Lucian off to one side lane, you have the Kennen off on another, you have plenty of wave clear with the Caitlyn and the Karma, you have many means to just kind of stall, right? But the Kennen is AP. He's more willing now to join the rest of the team and look for these fights. And given the position that the Unicorns of Love are in, they are so much further ahead, and they are more than ready to bring G2 into a fight right now.
Yeah, definitely that AP Kennen point is super interesting because it seems like G2 were drafting a 1-3-1 combo. Whenever you're talking these games, by the way, a fight is about to happen, so you might have to stop your point. But it felt to me in the pick and ban phase that G2 was saying we want a 1-3-1, so we try and like split push against a team fighting team.
Yep.
And then in game, obviously from the draft, they said no, actually this is going to be AP Kennen, so we want to instead try and just pure team fight you. But then they really lack frontline. And that's a tricky thing now, because Chachi and the rest of Unicorns have a lot of damage to bring.
Spec dealing decent damage, but doesn't have the Blade of the Rune King. No reliable way to chase down Vizicsacsi. Decent damage so far. Looking for the 3rd mark of the Storm, but the slow making it easy to get out. Now PerkZ the one in trouble, though. Here comes the Pony trying to get knocked back to the team. The CC between these two guys is too much for PerkZ to handle. In goes Rakan. That's just the icing on the cake, and PerkZ gets knocked out.
And the easiest thing to do against a 1-3-1 is just kill the one. Send all your members off to a side lane. Just have Unicorns of Love group up. They have pressure on all 3 lanes. And after Expect use his ulti and his flash in the bottom lane, they were confident he wouldn't try and make a TP play top. So instead, Unicorns were just like, let's fight. Let's do what we do best and get a kill onto PerkZ.
And Unicorns of Love are moving so well around the map, and this Hecarim pick is just working out amazingly.
Yeah, this is a really well-executed split push play from Unicorns of Love. They have 3 lanes pushing down. They know they can roam first, and they just target the one guy left alone. So it's just a clean play with no counterplay at all possible from G2 eSports. And a lot of praise there for Unicorns and how they're actually using this advantage. And it's always fun again to watch Xerxe bring out something a little bit different, a little bit new. He didn't have to do anything in the early game. He was just kind of farming. And then his team said, okay, guys, now we're ready. And now he's 3-0-1.
If you think about it, during the draft, we mentioned G2 maybe struggling to adapt to the current meta. Well, if you're struggling to adapt to the current meta and Xerxe's already going one step ahead, it's definitely going to be a tough game here. But and now, Baron potentially on the table.
I did feel like there was a big window for G2 to abuse, right? Like, Xerxe was not really on the map before level 6. And even when he got level 6, like, he wasn't really doing a huge amount. And the amount of control that G2 had was fantastic, yet Trick and PerkZ, like, they were never able to do anything with the early pressure that Zven built as a fight starts.
They're trying to get something done. Equalizer's going to come out. Trick going to have to try to flash to safety. So much damage on that Rumble, but walking away once again empty-handed, and Trick just failing to get it engaged there.
I feel like whenever Vizicsacsi joins the fight with Unicorns of Love, everyone from G2 runs away because there's a level 14 Rumble who's been power farming in the lane. We have to remember, AP Kennen's laning phase is much weaker. Had this been the normal split push Kennen, it would have been a wit's end first item. And this laning phase would definitely look different. Right now, Vizicsacsi is not really afraid of Expect. He's not been afraid at all because he's been able to push out his lane, get a ton of farm, and then say, yeah, I'm just going to join my team for team fights. And I just really have to question the fact that G2 are running what could be a 1-3-1 and putting it as a team fighting comp without frontline and with this AP Kennen that is in many ways a suboptimal build compared to what we normally see.
And we look at the builds coming in from Unicorns of Love. 3 Ninja Tabbies already. While the AP Kennen may be rough, I mean, pure AD itemization also could have hurt them. And now Unicorns of Love, this is pretty easy for them to start up. There is 0 vision for G2.
And vision, again, we've talked a lot about it. Unicorns, usually they are not on point when it comes to vision, but they have the full river warded as Trick tries to come in for the steal.
Maybe to get it, getting lower and lower, charmed up. The chain CC comes in. Baron will drop. Trick not able to make it in time. Now PerkZ and Trick gonna have to back off, but that is Baron for Unicorns of Love. A 4K gold lead in desperation setting in for G2, but they're gonna try to find a play. Grand entrance to take it out. Xerxe now running for his life. Have to respect the Unicorns of Love, though. The empowered recalls.
He's fine. He's gonna run away. This has definitely been one of the cleanest mid games we've seen from the Unicorns of Love. It's not based around just getting a great team fighting, using that to take a Baron. Like this was a vision setup into making sure the jungler couldn't get close to actually take the Baron, and then everyone disengages right after. They are in full control in this game, and they're playing it very, very well.
And I have to praise Hylissang because that taunt into the knockup was just beautiful, keeping Trick completely denied from even trying to steal away that Baron. It means that now that they have that objective, sieging onto these towers becomes even easier.
Have to be careful too, because Xerxe's just running forward. He already has the Trinity Force, the Cinder Hulk, nigh unkillable at this stage, and an absolute threat to both the AD carries on the G2 lineup. Things are not going to get easier here for G2.
There is no worse feeling than playing a Lee Sin against a Hecarim, and you haven't even completed your first item, and you look over the board and you see, that kind of sucks. He can't do anything in these fights. Like, his value is little to none, because we just didn't see anything from Trick in the early game.
Also, the only target for him, actually, never mind, because expect my guy.
Not going to be enough, but the ulti does come out along with the Zhonya's. Maybe enough time for the rest of G2 to get here. Zven and PerkZ on the hunt, double 80 carries, with just an easy disengage from the Unicorns of Love.
See, Exileh down the bottom lane here. Also to the Trick point, like again, if he wants a target, well, who's he going for? Xayah, who's obviously going to use her ulti when Trick jumps in to this fight here. Exileh might be the one he needs to go for. Exileh late game can go for Hourglass to try and keep him safe. But yeah, really, we needed to see more from the early game of Trick. He's definitely been one of the guys underperforming after they returned from MSI.
Interesting too, because one of the picks we really wanted to see from Trick after all the experimentation in past weeks was the Lee Sin. We wanted to see early proactive plays, and it's not happening today.
I mean, a part of me wanted to cast the Nunu, but I do know that...
That's because you're a bad person. That's because you're a bad person.
From MSI, casting the Nunu games was 40 minutes of talk about the other team, and then say, hey guys, now G2 is in the late game. Let's see what they can do.
Well, I don't think G2 are going to get a chance.
Oh, knock up chain CC. That's the wombo combo digging forward. Unicorns of Love burning some cooldowns with the repents. Maybe too much, but then Mithy going to get burned up. There's so much damage from Vizicsacsi. Mithy maybe set to fall, but he's going to back out. Ryze on the hunt for blood, and now they're going to have to back away. Rakan ready to go forward. Grand entrance. Leap right back out with that battle dance. Now it's Vizicsacsi. He goes golden. Zven goes down. Unicorns crush the fight, and now they're just playing with their food.
Exquisite team fight from the Unicorns of Love. Perfectly utilizing their composition to what looks like a swift game one in favor of Unicorns.
PerkZ gonna get dropped. The Hecarim just keeps calling in. The Kennen wants to try to turn it. He's gonna get two back, but he may have taken down the bot lane, but it's simply too little too late on the side of Expect, and G2 getting taken down by Unicorns of Love here in game one in an insanely dominant fashion.
Yeah, 26 minutes only. We showed before this game even started that G2 eSports was 17-4 against the Unicorns of Love. This is the first time I've seen Unicorns completely dominate G2 eSports. The only reason Unicorns fell behind early was due to that laning phase in the bottom lane where they lost tower.
And it looks so good. Zven, Mithy dominating laning phase. This is what we want to see from G2. Trick, he may have had that 0-0 scoreline for most of the game, but he was still going mid to help out PerkZ. But when you look back on it, you realize nothing actually happened after that for G2, and it just feels like Unicorns of Love, the second they made it into that mid game, were in absolute control.
I just feel like there are, again, a few question marks in the draft. Like, we like the Caitlyn. There are a few questions around the Karma, but they definitely made it work in the early game. You cannot criticize that. And then we really have to come back to this Kennen pick, right? Because conventionally it is picked as that AD carry split push Kennen. We thought maybe the Ryze is picked as an answer to try and deal with the split push, but he didn't have the same sort of pressure in that top lane. We didn't really see any kind of snowballing from Trick. And then in the mid lane, that Lucian didn't get going either. And at that point, if the Kennen's not going, if there's nothing snowballing, then that comp is just going to straight up outscale you.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's such a hard comp, I feel like, to play from G2 eSports when they opt into AP Kennen. Because again, your win conditions used to be 1-3-1 split push. You know, we can win the side lane with Kennen. We have Lucian, who is super strong in the other side lane. But it turns into then, okay, we need to team fight. We need to win through team fighting here. And then they draft a comp with double AD carry, no real front line against a composition from Unicorns that can just hard engage with multiple guys so easy to the backline. I think it almost becomes impossible to actually win these mid-game team fights.
Definitely incredibly difficult on the side of G2, and Unicorns of Love played it beautifully, and they struck first in this top-tier matchup. Let's check in with the analysts to break down their win.
Thank you very much, guys. Very interesting. What a swift victory from the Unicorns of Love. And none of the analysts, I must say, and I must repeat immediately, had put their money on the Unicorns of Love, which is understandable, I guess, but the Unicorns of Love...
One game.
One game. Mickey. Well, you're right. Still, you guys are out, unfortunately. So you can leave the desk now and then, no.
Okay.
Just kidding. Just kidding. A very interesting pick, and Ben, we're going to get it up on the screen right now. And you guys were definitely amazed at a lot of things that were happening. And out of all the interesting things, I think it's cool that, I think Samux, it was you was mentioning, Unicorns of Love only have one style, one idea. They fight, 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 and they drafted a composition that was very all-in, especially with that Hecarim. So what did you make of the obvious plan?
I mean, I think in general, the draft didn't go that well for them because they kind of had every lane was losing, I think. And then they have a Hecarim that should be pressured really hard, but in the end, they actually got the kills and managed to come back in the game. But I think in general, G2 should have the better draft in this one. Maybe going Lucian was a bit of an overkill because kind of forced Kennen to go AP, which I don't think I agree with in this game because he could probably 1v9 if he went split push Kennen. So if they have win another mid laner, he doesn't even have to be a winning mid laner. He could go even or whatever. They had winning bot and they would have winning top and higher pressure jungle and could probably snowball top side. So I think in general, that's the only change I would do in their draft.
What about, sorry, I just want to ask Mickey about the Karma specifically. We know that the shield or the E and the Mantra E is nerfed on this patch in 7.12, and it's actually the first time that we've seen the Karma come out. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, I don't think Karma on this patch is that good. I've never didn't see it much in scrims at least. And when I was just talking to Mithy, I think a few days ago, he said that if you pick Caitlyn Karma into Xayah Rakan and just perma push the lane, you can win it, which I agree with. But then at level 6, then I think Xayah Rakan are so much stronger. And they can just force on you all the time when Rakan has ult up. So I don't think it's a good matchup for them.
Yeah, and maybe the tower going down early was even... I mean, them pushing down the tower early might have even been worse for them because they were forced into the mid-game a bit quicker and Unicorns of Love was just running all over them.
I mean, looking at the G2 draft, I think they have a very clear plan with, I don't know, they have 3 winning pushing lanes, they have a strong invading jungler against a jungler that's prone to getting invaded, so they should just keep the aggression up in the early game. They were able to get first blood tower at 6 minutes with a good pushing dual lane, as we mentioned, so everything was looking so good, and then they just got picked off over and over, and Xerxe's Hecarim out farming, getting 3 early kills. Yeah, Xerxe he's like, you know what, I'm going to play Hecarim now, deal with it. And I did want to break down some specific lane matchups with you guys. Samux, of course, in the middle lane. We had the Lucian up against the Ryze in the end. We were looking at the middle lane matchup as Exileh being kind of an issue or possible liability. But how is this matchup supposed to play out and how did both guys play it?
I think in general, Lucian is supposed to win early. Like you see here, he can just heavily trade and Ryze can't really do much. But as sooner or as later as the game goes, Ryze will be able to trade back when he moves forward. Like here, he has a lot of minions, and you can see like Ryze can always just WEQ and he gets the shield, and then he can run out really easily, and he can kind of out-trade Lucian by that. So I think Ryze is okay into Lucian. Like you kind of need to scale up a bit, and then you can maybe split push against him and win there, and then you can pressure that lane. But I still think in an early game, it's still a pushing lane for Lucian. And in general, I think, I mean, Exileh is a good Ryze. He was one of the first people to ever play the new Ryze, so I think Exileh in general, when he's on his comfort champs, he's really good, but I think the problem is that lately he hasn't really been playing those as much. Yeah. We talked about the respective champion pools of these mid laners, and I think we have to question it because we only saw Syndra getting banned out and still Lucian versus Ryze, like neither of them really fitting into the respective team comps. What do you make of the champion pools for these mid laners? I think the Lucian pick was okay, but I would rather have seen Kennen go AP and then maybe PerkZ pick a laner that could go even, like Orianna or something. And I mean, I know he's a good Orianna player, so I think he could probably win the lane even no matter what he plays against. But I just think that Kennen forced to go AP is really bad in this game. And I think the Ryze pick was a good counter pick into Lucian, and it worked very well for them. All right, yeah, well, G2 has said that they were kind of still figuring out what to pick, and maybe that's still the case. Mickey, let's look at the bottom lane more specifically. We already touched on the Karma, and Caitlyn and Karma were up versus Xayah and Rakan. We talked a bit about what to level or what to focus on for Rakan. You said that you prefer the E. This case, it was W, or? No, I used to max E, but then I talked to Mithy a bit, and I agree with him that 3 points in W and then E with Xayah is better. Because you can all in at level 6 and you have more damage on your W. And it's really easy to hit, so yeah. And then the E, level 5 E on Xayah is like 150 shield 2 times. So that's pretty big. So that's enough, you would say, Fred. And you would rather counter, if they go on you, you counter by just jumping in, and then you can still point back and have a shield on your ally. Yeah. But this lane, I think, like Caitlyn Karma can win early, of course, because I can perma push.
But I think if either of them gets hit by a Rakan W, they have to either flash or they die. But yeah, with Rakan, I mean, Karma Caitlyn, you shouldn't get hit by the W, of course, because you outrange them. But then level 6, then you can't really do much. So
Yeah.
I think it's still a pretty bad lane against them. And yeah.
We also saw Zven rushing the QSS, and was interestingly, it actually doesn't help you versus Rakan that much.
It doesn't do that much because you have 2 layers of CC. So if you QSS one of them, the other one's going to come in. If you wait for the first one to disappear, well, then you've not QSS the crowd control immediately. So QSS coming out very early on towards Zven. I criticized Steelback for doing the same build yesterday. So
I bet you're not going to do it for Zven. No.
Not going to go as hard on Zven, but I definitely don't agree with the build. And that shows that people, like, even though Rakan's been in the metagame for a while, I still think people don't really know how to deal with him. We've been seeing, like, we saw the Braum from the gentleman over here earlier on. We've seen the Karma Caitlyn here. So people are trying to find different things to deal with Rakan, but we haven't seen anything being like a super hard counter yet.
No, we haven't. But all in all, with all that, the Unicorns of Love, they beat G2 in 26 minutes, super fast. So, Samux, do you see G2 bouncing back, and what do you mainly want to see changed?
I mainly want to see the Kennen change, going split push when he has a free lane like this, when they first pick Rumble. Yeah, I think that's the main change. I think the game just got out of hand when they snowball with Xayah Rakan. It's really easy to just continue snowballing with like Ryze, Hecarim, Rakan, Xayah. You just dive them 24/7, and that's what UOL is good at. That's just going mid and then just running down, and then yeah.
Yeah, Vicky, anything to add?
No, he pretty much summed it up.
He pretty much summed up, and Unicorns of Love have chosen red side for